Morning everyone, I'm Soph, these are my doctor's notes, and don't worry, I'm okay now. You see, my inner ear decided to celebrate Pride Month in the best way possible by not letting me see straight. I got labyrinthitis, and whilst I was lying horizontally so my life stopped looking like a Kylie song, I figured, you know what? This is content. So today's video is a story and then the science that explains said story. So settle in with your cocoa and your cup of tea. So I was visiting my family and on a Friday evening started feeling like I'd had a glass of wine, and I hadn't because I'd just listened to a podcast about being sober curious and I was trying it out. But yeah, my head felt all heavy when I was moving it about. And then within a few minutes, everything started to spin very slowly, like I was in one of those funhouse corridors, do you know the ones I mean? Eyes open, eyes closed, it didn't matter, everything felt spinning. I made my way to my bed pretty sharpish, where my spinning world then meant I proceeded to be sick on and off for 10 hours. Important note, I was vomiting for 10 hours straight, not, as I accidentally told a friend later on, coming for 10 hours straight, which would probably actually be quite unpleasant. Silver linings though, because thanks to being so sick, actually this was the first time I'd ever got around to seeing my own bile, which then led me to learn something. So here's a quick bile tangent, right? My bile was yellow. When I told my girlfriend this, because you know, sharing is caring, she told me that when she had appendicitis, her bile was bottle green. Now I assumed that there must be something wrong with her, but turns out that bile has different pigments that give it different colours. Biliverdin makes it green, and it's the same pigment that makes like sometimes your bruises look a bit green. But that biliverdin sometimes breaks down into bilirubin, which is yellow. So sometimes biles are green, sometimes they're yellow, all biles are valid. Anyway, whilst I was mentally analysing my bile like a completely normal person, my parents decided to call 111, which US watches is the step before 999, which US watches is 911. I go to hospital, I wait a bit, I get asked to walk in a straight line and look like the drunken sailor that they don't know what to do with. Genuinely, my mum said it was like I was acting like a drunk person trying to walk in a straight line. I then get sent to the A&E department, aka the Accident and Emergency Hospital department. They do an ECG and say they'll plug a cannula into me. In my tired state, I double check that that's not the one that goes into your bits, and lovely Grace, the nurse, reassures me that it isn't. Lovely Grace tries to put a cannula in my vein but says I have tiny veins, which I take as a compliment because Grace is lovely. Grace makes me feel better about my tiny veins because they've always caused me bother whenever I've tried to go and give my O negative blood, which, side note, it's so frustrating having O negative blood but also being low in iron and also having tiny veins, because it actually makes the act of giving blood really difficult. So you feel like you have all this special stuff in you that you just want to share with the world but you can't, like a poet that can't speak or write or express himself in any way. Anyway, after being put on a drip for my dehydration and given some anti-sickness tablets, another doctor gives me a little like throw about, literally, he just kind of threw me about a bit, and then tells me I have labyrinthitis. I get given some drugs and I get sent home. But I was only left with more questions, the main one being, what is labyrinthitis? And how did I get it? Well, you might think you have two ears, but each ear is actually split into three smaller ears, the outer, middle and inner. So technically, you have 6 ears. In your inner ear is something called your labyrinth, and it's made up of 2 main parts. The first part is your cochlea. Now my research has taught me that Americans say cochlea, but sorry, I say cochlea, so suck on that. Wait. Now your cochlea is important for hearing, which is all well and good and important, but I don't need to talk about that here, whereas the other part of your labyrinth is important for balance, and it is called your vestibular system. Balance place, ooh, vestibular system. Your vestibular system is full of liquid, potassium-rich endolymph sloshing about, and also in there you've got these sensory hair cells. So as the liquid in the system sloshes, little finger-like sticky out bits on these hair cells pick up the movements, convert them into nervous impulses that your brain then reads, and that's how it works out what movements are happening. Your vestibular system has 3 little semicircular canals, which are each set in a different angle in your head. And this is so clever, right? The different angles of the canals mean that they can detect movement in different planes. So one detects up and down, one side to side, and one rotation. These three canals then lead into two sacs, your utricle and saccule. Now these sacs not only have sensitive hair cells and sloshing liquid, but they also have tiny little crystals of calcium carbonate, aka limestone, embedded in jelly in them. Tasty. Now these little chips are heavier than the liquid on its own, which makes these part of your inner ear particularly sensitive to gravity. When your body moves even a little bit, these chips bend the hair cells and again send signals to your brain. So together, the two sacs detect acceleration of your body. Your utricle senses it horizontally, like if you were riding in a car or going towards a camera in an intimidating manner, whereas your saccule measures it going up and down. Sorry, I got distracted by my own stupid joke. When I was first researching this video and I first saw the kind of labyrinth of your inner ear, I was going to make a joke about how it doesn't look like complicated, like, oh, what kind of labyrinth is that? You'd find the Minotaur in no time, haha. But actually, even though it doesn't look like complicated, I think it's absolutely incredible how the different parts of it are subtly different to inform your brain about different aspects of your state of balance. Like, it's just amazing. I cannot believe how we've managed to evolve something like that. Mind-blowing. But such a sensitive system is of course going to be vulnerable to going wrong, and that's where labyrinthitis and a number of other disorders come into play. Plonking itis on the end of something means that that thing has become inflamed. So labyrinthitis means that that delicate system, the labyrinth, has got inflamed. For example, if it's been hit by a virus or bacteria. Said inflammation can mess everything up and throw your balance system off balance, sending information to your brain that doesn't actually match what's going on around you, and this can cause vertigo, aka that spinning experience that I was experiencing. This can then make you nauseous because that spinning isn't matching with the input that you're getting from the rest of your body, say your feet about the stillness of the ground or your back about the flatness of your bed. Also, because your cochlea is part of the labyrinth complex, labyrinthitis can also have an impact on your hearing. Now, I didn't have any impact on my hearing, I don't think. I didn't have any hearing loss, which makes me think I could have had something similar to labyrinthitis called vestibular neuritis. Now there's that pesky itis again, but what's inflamed this time is the main neuron or nerve of your vestibular system. Either way, I'd had a bit of a cold earlier in the week, I'd been a bit under the weather and a bit stressed, so the doctor assumed it was labyrinthitis. And this does make sense because around 30% of people who get it report having had a cold just before. It seems like what happens is your cold virus makes its way to your inner ear and then creates an infection there. Although in my case, the doctor seemed to think it could have been an infection from bacteria rather than a virus because he gave me some antibiotics when he sent me on my way. On my way. Rusted root style. Which brings me on to the drugs, the medications. How do they work? Well, the antibiotics I was given were science drugs, phenoxymethylpenicillin. Now these work by up the cell walls of your bacteria, aka those chunky bits that you always see on diagrams. That's it. That's all the explanation I need to give here. Phenoxymethylpenicillin. You know what you're doing, you know that you're winning when you take us, feel your bacteria go, oh, maybe that's not good for your gut. I don't know, we just kill the bacteria, we don't care which, because every bacteria is not nice. I tell you that, and it is so true. I'm phenoxymethylpenicillin and I'm for you. Ooh! But I was also given other science drug, beta histine. This is the one that was meant to help with my vertigo symptoms, my spinning, and in short, it helps by increasing blood flow to the labyrinth, which then helps to drain it of excess fluid, which can apparently be something that causes those symptoms. And I was happy to read later on that beta histine is actually quite hard to get a hold of in the US, not just because of the healthcare system, but because it didn't seem to work very well, so people stopped selling it. Great. But potentially faulty tablets or not, the intense spinning went after a couple of days. But the main thing now that's really peeving me off is that I just still get tired pretty easily, and I'm generally quite spaced out, which is quite unnerving. But it seems like it can take 3 to 6 weeks to fully recover, and I'm just into my 3rd week now as I film this, so it's not really a surprise. It's just I'm learning a lot about being ill and being kind to myself whilst being ill, but that is a psychological analysis of me that we don't need. All in all, I'm in good spirits, especially when I'm sitting, and extra especially when I'm talking to you, camera in my room. That's it for now though. I just find your noggin labyrinths absolutely fascinating, and my experience felt so surreal at the time that I just wanted to share it. So do like this video if you like it, share if you share it, subscribe if you subscribe it, media my socials if you want to do that, and comment about any illnesses that have taken you by surprise and made you feel super weird. Have you had vertigo before, or something else? Give me your strange sensations. Otherwise, all that's left to say is thank you so much for watching, have a lovely day, and remember, I'm spinning around, move out of my way, or I will be sick on you. The most muchos of graciases to my patrons, with a special shout out to Terry, Dhruv and Angela. The doctor seemed to think it could have been an infection. Maybe it was just his voice, the inflection, telling me, ooh, you got labyrinthitis and it ain't good for you. So I went back home, laid on the bed, took all the medication I was told to instead of running around with my labyrinthitis. Ugh. Videos are like children, you shouldn't have favourites, but here's a playlist of mine. And here's one video I've chosen specifically for you, and here's a cheeky little Patreon link. Adios.